Okay, I have no disclosures. Let's do this. Okay, how important are emotions to the way we operate in the world? So before we had phones, our friend Steve Jobs gave us this way to communicate very quickly. Literature is very emotional. We can convey emotions through story and through literature, very effective at that. Steve Jobs gave us these little devices where now we just communicate in 140 characters or less. That strips emotional content out of what we're trying to communicate. It becomes really challenging to communicate that way. So we invented something else to convey emotion. So we invented emoticons. You familiar with emoticons, right? There are hundreds, thousands perhaps, of emoticons because that's how we now inject emotion into those small snippets of communication. And those tend to be universal, right? Those emoticons. Okay, shout at me the emotion when you know it. You made it. That's good. She's making the face there. What emotion is that? It's beyond happy, right? That's ecstatic. That's a good one. So excited. Yes, right? That's that one. That's when I walked in here this morning. That was how I felt. Yes. How about that one? I hear shocked. Ashamed, maybe. Embarrassed, perhaps. Maybe because of the red cheeks. Surprised. Good. How about that one? That one maybe is surprise and shock, okay? Oh, skeptical, that's a good word. Thinking, considering, okay. Very sad. This will be us Friday after graduation. We're very sad with you. Okay, and then this, content, that's going. Really happy, very happy. Okay. So we're getting some language around emotions. So for the first thing we want to do today, I want us to continue getting some language around emotions. So I'm going to do a quick activity in small groups. This is going to be fun with this setup. So can I have all four of you be a small group? You agree? Okay, good. And then, oh boy. We're going to do fours. So if you can... So it's four here maybe, and then maybe just three, because that'll work out here, and then four here, and then four here, and then you guys can figure it out, right? Four. That's going to be maybe 3 or 5. Yeah, turn around and talk. Okay, here's the question for you to answer in your small group. Name 2 emotions that you have experienced today. So far. That's it. Just share 2 emotions you have experienced so far today. And they don't have to be in English because I want you to get the words to express what that emotional state was for you today. Just share 2 and do that in your group. Go ahead. It's not. So if you've got a lot, it's going to be.
So it'll all come out.
And you will only be able to see.
It'll get really small.
Oh, I don't have all of it there.
Yeah.
You can ask him.
All the time you have some certain emotions and they blend from one to another.
Oh.
Full blend. If you look at the first one and the sixth one, what is the difference when, at which point, the sixth one becomes the first one?
Yeah.
At which point? What's the tipping point?
So
What makes you decide, not just funny and laughing, but I'm also ecstatic. Am I? So this excitement.
This is wonderful. I need you to share some of them. Oh,
That's good. Because it's not all emotions spectrum. Like I'm just I had something and else, and you like before like framing us, and I'm just looking at this one. So what kind of emotions?
Yeah, just share it and then I'll come back. So it sounds like you're done. Yeah, okay. Okay, sounds like maybe some of you are done. That's a good. Come back. Okay. First question. How easy or challenging was that? So scale of 1 to 10. 1 is like, wow, that was really, I couldn't even respond. 10, like, yes, I gave 12 emotions and it was easy. Scale 1 to 10. 1 hard, 10 easy. Where 5. You've suddenly become my. What number you have?
9 to 10.
9 to 10. So you did like 10 emotions. You just shared like I had. Okay. You could have. I did 2. Were there some themes in your group? So was there similarities to the emotions you shared in your groups? Similar. And that's the next question. Were they positive or not so much? Thank you. Positive emotions for our day today so far. Hey, we're off to a good start. Thank you. Often when we do this, not in the context of a seminar week that we're all about to enjoy, the negative emotions often come first. So if I ask people to share 2, the first one out tends to be a negative one, and then a positive one comes next. Negative emotions are attractive for some reason. We tend to express those more frequently, so that tends to happen. But in this situation, I'm also very pleased. Pleased is an emotion. Very pleased to hear that you are in a positive state. Was there some difficulty in expressing? So some of you said 5. Why was that hard? And I didn't restrict you to doing it in English. You could do it in any language. Why was it challenging to? Because there's so many different emotions?
And you played us to the 6th one, and I was like, just look all the time. Okay, the 6th one, what kind of emotion I had.
So you didn't need to pick from those 6. It could be from any. Yeah.
You're inclined to pick from the ones you see.
So I sort of anchored you to those. And you're, well, maybe it's one of those. Okay, yes? That's interesting. It's not typical to think about emotions. Why not?
Maybe you think, but when someone asks you what are your emotions, then you start thinking what is emotion, is that a feeling or it's not?
Yeah.
So it's not easy.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. So we're not necessarily accustomed to thinking in feeling. Right? We feel constantly.
Actually, we're not accustomed to
Naming it. That's it. That's it. We feel it all the time. We're not accustomed to naming it. I love that. I'm going to pull back that name word in a little while. Yes? This is it too. Not everybody feels comfortable. And I want to say comfortable. Not everybody feels safe expressing emotions all the time too. Does that sound right as well? Yeah. And so how can we as leaders feel safe in expressing them, and then as leaders help our teams feel safer in expressing? Because it's part of life. It's human, right? To be human is to have emotion. And so that's part of how we show up. Evan was talking about how we show up. That's part of how we show up. And I can squash it, which means it's going to come out somewhere else, or I can embrace it. So some of what we're talking about here is this, emotional intelligence. That's where we're going, the understanding of emotion. And there's 2 components in blue that you see up on the screen. It's self-awareness and self-regulation. That's the words we're going to explore today around emotional intelligence. And so before we go any farther, I kind of want to make the case for you about why we should care about emotional intelligence. First part of this case is at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, when we do leadership development training, the first thing we do is emotional intelligence. First thing. It's foundational. Like, this is how leadership happens. This is the thing we need to explore first. Everything else we do builds upon it. And so we thought we'd start that here with you today. Let me make the case. Okay. This is the research, Harvard Business Review. Those who effectively manage emotions and the reactions to emotions of others experience better clinical outcomes, greater professional satisfaction. All right, so increased empathy is a component of emotional intelligence. And then wait, this last one. Improved teamwork in healthcare organizations, which as a leader is what we're after. Improved teamwork. So outcomes and improving teamwork along the way. You're good at emotional intelligence. These are some of the things you can experience. Wait, I have more. Case for EI for you. How do you feel about that one? You're smiling. That means good. 58% of professional success, regardless of job category. This long thing says EQ. So EQ is supposed to be a play on IQ. Do you all know IQ, intelligence quotient? So intelligence. EQ is emotional quotient. So how emotionally intelligent are you? EQ is 400% more powerful in predicting success than IQ is. So your ability to be emotionally intelligent, to be self-aware and self-regulate, more predictive of success than straight up IQ. Now both, of course, are important. EQ seems to be more powerful. And then there's this last thing. If you look at high performers, 9 out of 10 of them score high on emotional intelligence. Okay, have I sold this to you yet? Yes? Just say yes. Yes? Great, because that's where we're going. Okay, let's do the EI thing. So self-awareness is the ability to understand your own emotions and their effects on your performance. So some of the issues with the identifying the emotions, the first thing we did, some of you said, I don't know the words to use. You had an interesting, can you share what you were talking about when I was back there?
When the emotion number 1 becomes emotion number 6,
Yeah.
vice versa. So obviously all the time we feel some emotions, but what is the tipping point? What makes us to go from happy to overwhelming or static, or where is the boundary? It's individual for each person, so you can't put a label on it. Okay, at this point I'll become from happy to extremely happy. Why? What happened?
Maybe it is more that it's about the degree of emotions. I mean, we are feeling ourselves happy, so it's meaning the degree of it should be 100, for example. If I'm like 70, 75, it's okay, I'm good, nothing special, but still good. So when you ask me what I felt, I said like, was I happy? I'm waiting for just when the degree is so high. Was I upset? No, I was not. So I cannot react to something in the middle. I cannot differential. I think it's one of the problems.
Right, so you're talking about the degree or the intensity of whatever that emotion is, and how do I describe that? I'm going to give you a way momentarily. You'll see the intensity thing important too. So you're talking about positivity, how negative or positive is that emotion, good or bad, negative or positive, and then how intense is that emotion. I'll show you something on that in a minute. Okay, that's what self-awareness is though, right? What are my emotions, and then am I aware on how that emotion is impacting how I am currently showing up? How does my emotional state impact my behavior right now? Think about how Evan was talking about leadership styles. Does your emotion impact the style you have chosen to show up in? I'm angry, so therefore I'm going to be autocratic. I mean, that might happen. And is autocratic the most effective right now? Probably not. Like if we have to think about what's the impact on the influence on our behavior. And then how it helps or hurts what you're trying to do. So I have to understand how I'm feeling, how it impacts how I show up, and then is that a good way for me to show up or not? That's an awful lot of things to be aware of. And then you sense how others see you. This one is complex. You sense how others see you, and so you align your self-image with a larger reality. So it's not just self-driven, it is the reality of how other people are perceiving you right now. And so emotional intelligence is also about awareness how other people are experiencing you, or perceiving how you are showing up. It brings you a larger sense of how you're impacting the world around you. And as a leader, that is really important because as you lead people, we often say you are in a spotlight as a leader. Does that make sense? You are in a spotlight. That means the team is staring at you. Maybe not actually staring at you, but they are watching everything you do and trying to extract meaning from all of the behavior you exhibit, the facial expression you have, the gestures you use. The team is trying to extract meaning from that. They want to know how you feel. And they're going to try and read into everything to understand that. And so in the spotlight, you should be very aware of how you are projecting, how you're showing up, because your team is going to know. Okay. There's a little bit more. Self-regulation. So self-awareness is the understanding of how you are showing up and how other people may be perceiving how you show up. Self-regulation is then managing that. I have to manage that, right? Once I'm aware how I'm showing up, now I have to manage it and try and take some control over how I am expressing. Especially disruptive ones, right? So if I am angry, am I showing the anger? Because if I show that to my team is going to react to that in a certain way, perhaps in a way that I don't want. So how am I managing those disruptive emotions and impulses? And then I choose how to show up. So I am aware of the emotional state I'm in, about how that might show up for me. Don't let it dictate how I show up, and instead I choose how to show up. All of that has to happen sort of quickly. Yes, go.
My problem is somehow difficult to assess myself.
Yeah.
As in whether I'm too harsh or too soft. And at times I tend to judge myself whether if this is right, it will hurt others, and somehow this is something difficult for me to. Can I ask somebody to assess me and not tell me what I am?
Can you? Yes. So short answer, yes. Long answer, that depends. So you will learn from how others react to you, how you are showing up. You can also, Evan earlier talked about he has someone who he trusts to coach him in some of the ways he has shown up, right? So Evan asked the question, I was just in that meeting, how do you think I did in that meeting? And he trusts someone to be able to share with him, well, you looked a little angry here, or you looked really happy, and so that whatever that is, do you have someone who you trust who can do that? And as a leader, that can be challenging to find people in those spaces. You'll also learn along the way. This is all about learning, always. All of this is always about learning. You'll learn along the way how you show up starts to impact other people. Not easy. No, none of this is. Well, you knew that coming in this week, right? Leadership is hard, right? That's okay.
It's very difficult to know how people are going to react, how you express your emotions. And you can't control that. I don't know. And practice. You can always get better. Yeah.
You can always get better. And I'll give you some opportunities. Yes?
So this is like acting, right?
Ooh.
You're like on the stage, and now you're in a different role, and you pick the role that you think is going to be the best one for the situation. You put aside yourself for a moment.
See, now you were my favorite person, and now you ask me hard questions. Okay, so I want to make some distinctions about. So in a lot of leadership, we talk about being authentic, right? And so I don't want you to feel like you have to be inauthentic, right? If you're feeling something, you should feel it. Just be aware of how that's expressed, right? So if you're angry, let's not run around. Right, okay, that's probably not the best way to express that, especially as a leader, right? So you have to be aware. Can I actually, I have a whole slide on this. May I push this back for you? Yeah? Okay. About how do we do all of that? I know that's where you're going, yes. So maybe you don't need all this. You're like, yeah. How do I manage this? Because how can I hold, right? Yeah, because my face, well, some people have a harder time with the expressions than others, right? So if you are one of those people that are just like, no, people know. They look at me, they know, you're smiling there. Okay, yes, right? Other people, right? It's hard to tell what they're feeling. And if you know that you're the person who people can tell, okay, that's going to be a little bit more challenging. Like, okay, I'm feeling something. People are probably going to be able to tell. So we'll talk about that. Here, this is we've made it to the place. All right, so how would you complete this? Emotional intelligence is defined by what? This is a hard one, I got.
Feel your emotions, but not to express them.
No, I think maybe that's the wrong direction. So to be aware of what emotional state you are and understand how they show up for you, and then regulate how you express them. Good. So yeah, you just answered it. Okay. I'm going to call it notice and name, right? So notice first that you're having an emotion. Then can you name that emotion, which is what we were trying to do earlier. Could you put a name to the emotion that you were having? That's the first way to, right? I have to really understand where I'm at. And this is not easy, right? When I asked, what are the emotions? Well, I don't know. We go to the easy ones like happy, sad, angry. There's a lot more emotions than that, right? We have this huge swath of emotional response. And so can I start to get a little more nuanced in that about what it is that's going on? And so I also want to add in the layer of, okay, so this is you as leaders, and you have teams, and your teams have emotional responses, and your teams have, right, emotional things happening. So an awareness that this is happening everywhere all the time, that your team is experiencing emotional states too. So notice and name. Can you notice that there's an emotion happening for you? Can you name that emotion? Then, once we have that, this is the one that you were asking about. How do I navigate? Navigate? It's an interesting word to use, right? How do I navigate that so that I continue to be effective as a leader? So notice, name, navigate. Those are the three tools that we have. Notice the emotional state we have, navigate that emotion. Okay. So can you think about this? You don't have to shout it. How good are you at identifying how you are feeling? And then the swings. How good are you identifying emotional swings in yourself? Do you swing back and forth? Do you go from one to the other, or is it slower? Do you know this about yourself? Can you jump from emotion to emotion to emotion? Are you a little more steady? And I'm spending the good time and happy before I move over to upset. The people around you know. Do you know? Because if you want to know, go ask your friend, your partner. They'll tell you about that because they see you and how you show up. Do you know it about yourself? That's the question. Maybe valuable to ask people around you. So, do you see me as a lot of extreme emotions? Do you see me as somewhere in the middle? Because your team will know also. And do you know why you have those emotions? Are you aware why you get happy, sad, angry, ecstatic, thrilled, glum? That's awareness. And it takes effort. Notice, name. So really, I'm going to ask you from here for the rest of the week, be aware of how your emotions are coming up. And we will ask you, first we'll ask you every morning, how are you feeling? And then we'll want sleepy. Is sleepy an emotion? Maybe it is. It could be. How are you feeling? And right, think about, just to get you practicing, how are you feeling? Don't ask it in the morning. Under-caffeinated is how I'm feeling in the morning. Right. Right. We'll ask you at the end of the day, how are you feeling? Okay. Just to get used to all that. And then keep thinking about that, right? Just keep Trying to be self-aware about how that happens. And then this regulation, can you express it in the right words? And then can you manage how that manifests for you? All right. Think about one of the emotions you expressed in that little group activity we did. Just put one of those emotions in your head now. One of the emotions you said you were feeling today. You have it? One of the emotions that you were feeling? Okay. Now think about that emotion on a scale of 1 to 10 in pleasantness. How pleasant is that emotion from negative to positive, really? 1 to 10. Rate it. 1 to 10. Think about, on a scale of 1 to 10, how pleasant was it? It was unpleasant to it was really pleasant. 1 to 10. Now think about that also on a scale of 1 to 10 on intensity. How intense was that emotion? Not intense at all or really intense? You have it? Do you have the two numbers? Okay, because you are emotional expressive. Can you give me the two numbers that you had? 10 on pleasantness and 8 on intensity. Okay, 10 and 8. Very good. All right, I have a scale for us to look at. I'm going to give you a scale with 100 emotions on it. 100. 100 emotion words. 10 by 10. Can you give me what was your two numbers? 21. So was it 7 and 3? Like what was that? How intense? And then, how about yours? 7 and 6. 7 on pleasant, 6 on intensity. Okay, 7, 6, 10, 8. He's very intense. All right, let's do one more. Can you tell me? 7, 6. Oh, so that should be the same emotion. What word did you use? Excited. What word did? Exhaustion. But that's pleasant for you. Yes, okay. And then excitement. Okay. A 10-8 excitement and a 7-6 excitement. All right, let me put it up. Look at, there's a lot on there. Is this in you may have it. It's probably tiny and you can't read it. Okay. 7, 6 is joyful. So how intense? Pleasantness. I love the expression you're making. Are you aware of the expression you're making? Which one? The one you're making. This one. It was that one. Yeah, exhaustion. So 7, 6, joyful. Is that excited? Does joyful work for you? Okay. 10, 8. 10, 8. Excited. Very self-aware. That's exceptional. Exactly right. Okay. Lots of different emotional words to use here. Now, is this the final definition of what each emotion is from intensity to pleasantness? No. It does offer some language around emotion for us to use, though. Some more nuance around what are we feeling. And the question around how do I know when I move from just plain happy to excited? I don't even know that happy is in this on the right here. So excited is way up there. There's only 2 more to go, elated and ecstatic. It's pretty good. You probably want a copy of this. Some of you are taking pictures, but you probably want a bigger copy of this just to have an idea. And you probably find it online if you wanted to. This is the Circumplex model by James Russell. We might be able to get you a larger copy so you can read all of it. Can you? No, it's hard to read. Yeah. Hard to read in your space. Okay. Oh, yeah. Maybe this one's up front if this is possible. Is it possible to turn the front lights down to see that? Oh no, now we're gonna get sleepy. We're right before lunch. 6, is that what? There it is, 6 and 1. We've just moved the energy level and intensity down by turning the lights down. All right, we can't leave the lights down that long. And hot, it was another one we're about to. Yeah, super. And we can bring them back up. You okay? Can we bring them back up?
Does it mean that melancholics has a lower emotional intelligence? For example, if a person melancholic, does it mean that he has lower emotional intelligence?
If a person.
Melancholics or
I see. If someone is melancholic, do they have a lower no. I think it's just that's an expression of emotion that they're having. All right, good. There's 100 words up there, so when we ask you, how are you feeling? You can pick from this list. How are you feeling? Hopefully it's not morose or any of the ones down there. Okay, so let's get to the science part of this. So limbic brain, so we are emotional first, rational second. We react first with emotion and then with rational thought. Irrational thought tries to align with why we acted in that way, so we try and justify our emotional response. That tends to be how we work. So you have reptilian brain. All right, is this good or bad? So is the thing that's happening to me good or bad? Is it hurt or not? Is it positive or negative? That's what that's for. And then next, the limbic brain works. It's an emotional response. And lastly, the rational brain starts to come in. Our rational brain doesn't get a whole lot of energy. Actually, I'll go here. Our limbic brain gets all of it. Let me back. So limbic brain, 85% of the energy goes to the limbic brain. Secret author of choices. Why do we decide to do the things that we do? Most likely it is this emotional response. It never tires out. You will always be able to feel. Always have emotions. Our cognitive side, however, tires easily. It's about 15%. So on Thursday, I'm going to talk a little bit about how the brain works. Can we pop the lights back up? I can just a little bit more. That 40 or more % of our behavior is habits. So think about habit. Habit is stuff that we just do without thinking too hard about it, right? We do those things on what we call autopilot. We just do them. When you get up in the morning, do you think about what happens next, or is it the same thing every day? It's the same thing every day. That's why you can do more than one thing when you're in a habit. That's why we sort of program to do those things. So we build a lot of our lives around habit. We just do, and that frees up a little bit of our limited slow brain, neocortex, to be able to process other things. So in the morning, I listen to a podcast. You all listen to podcasts? Anybody? Yes, right? While driving, because driving is a habit, right? You don't have to think about, oh, I should turn the steering wheel this much right now, and then, right? You just drive. When I get up in the morning, I have that. It's the thing that I do, right? And I'm listening to a podcast during that because I can pay attention to it because I have freed up my rational brain by having a habit around it. Up to 40% or more of our behavior is habits. We need to do that so that we can actually function and think about stuff. So limited bandwidth tires easily. We are in cognitive overload quite often. Does anybody, you feel that sometimes? Like cognitive overload, too much stuff coming at us to think about. Yeah, our rational brain tires really quickly, and our emotional brain does not. So at 85% of our brain being emotional oriented, of course we should pay attention to that as leaders. This is going to drive a lot of how we show up. Is going to drive a lot of how the teams we lead show up. It's going to be a lot over here. And so having a language for that, having words for that, and being aware of how that's impacting my choices, how it's impacting my behavior, and how it's impacting how other people are perceiving my behavior becomes really important. All of this, by the way, is from Thinking Fast and Slow, Dan Kahneman, behavioral economics, Daniel Kahneman. Okay. So, what can we do? Can we engage the rational brain, the cognitive part, as we experience this emotional state? And so ways to do that. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? And what do I want to do now? Right? Let's engage the rational brain in that thing, that emotional response that we're having. And really, here's some ways to think about that. Am I getting in my own way? How am I getting in my own way? And what can I do differently now as how I show up? All right, emotional contagion. Emotional contagion. Are you familiar with this idea that emotions are contagious? Yeah, emotions are contagious. And so negative emotions may be a little bit more contagious. That you're already nodding. Yeah, so emotions are contagious, which is yet another reason why, as leaders, we have to pay attention to how we are expressing and how we are showing up, especially when you have that spotlight on you for your team. And so there's this idea that if we want to feel a certain way, we are more likely to feel that way if other people are. So if I want to feel calm or happy, and the people around me are calm and happy, I am much more likely to go in that direction. If I want to feel angry, and there's an angry person there, I am much more likely to feel angry. In fact, the intensity of my feeling is going to be influenced by the intensity of the feeling around me. And so if there's intense negative emotions, I might slide in that direction. If there's intense positive emotion, I might move more in that direction. It's just this societal congruency. So that means we all tend to want to feel similarly. And there's that negativity bias that it's the negative feelings travel faster through groups. And so we really have to pay attention to those.
Sometimes when we arrive at work in the morning, the rest of the attendants and I are like, are we having a good morning or a bad morning? And that usually means whether our boss is in a good mood or a bad mood.
I didn't need to talk about this at all. You could have just shared that story and then managed it, right? Yes, and how do they know if he's in a good mood or a bad mood? He hasn't shown up and said, I'm in a bad mood today. Just emanates, right? Yeah. And so that's not being regulated, is what you're saying. That emotional state is not necessarily being regulated. I mean, not a good time. Yeah, the gatekeepers always know, right? Like it's good to build a relationship with the gatekeepers because they know. Yes. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And so Daniel Goleman, who Evan has already talked about, and I think you're bringing up here, wrote the book called Emotional Intelligence. And so, yes, this is over 25 years old. Daniel Kahneman, from the last slide, Thinking Fast and Slow, also deals in emotional intelligence work and behavioral economics, which is just the study of how we behave and how to influence that behavior, some other things that we'll be talking about later. Understanding that there's this emotional aspect to all of the ways that we show up, including how we work around those who may express their emotions in ways that aren't necessarily as productive as they could be. That's it. It's about right? I just want to, you had something. You had something.
I say that it's two-way roads. If your boss is not good, you can change it. So with positive cues, with something, your happiness, so influence to his emotion.
There's so much right there. There's so much in that. So did you all hear that? So the suggestion here was, well, that's a two-way street. If your boss is in a it's a bad day mood, you have the opportunity to try and influence that. So I have two reactions to that. The first is, well, that's a lot of work for you to have to be responsible for, right? To own shifting the mood of the boss. And secondly, you're talking about managing up and influencing behavior and using influence to try and get to a space where we are all in a better place. And I think that is, yes, we're going to be talking about how to use influence to shift behavior. So clearly I'm conflicted on we can change it, but then, like, do I have to make up something? Do I have to go in and sort of dance around? And like, what does that mean for me to try and shift it? And am I always doing that? Right, it's exhausting. So it's interesting challenge. Yes.
But when every people within that group, in a second, you can change what every people within that value, you need to do an extra effort, and sometimes you are not going to achieve change the
Yeah, so you're talking about the power of negative emotions, and negative emotions may be a little bit harder to shift than a positive is to the other way, right? It's easy. Could be. It's harder to bring negative to positive than positive to negative. It can be more effort or more work to do that. Depends on the intensity, yeah. More in the back, yeah? And then we'll come to you. Yeah.
How not to keep somebody like read the book at the end, the personage is like killing the woman. So how not to lose self-regulation? What about that? If you are stable about the emotions, but mostly we like we reflect it to the high emotions like angry or when we don't have energy. How to react to the middle, how to stop ourselves, okay, like several emotions, and I will bomb. So like, will you tell us how to control, how to self-regulate?
I couldn't have paid her for a better segue to this. That's great. So this is not quite an answer to that. You want to talk about how can I start to shift away from being overcome, right? So that's about the tale about losing control. They are, yeah, like it goes the emotions run uncontrolled and run to an extreme place where I am no longer in control of my actions necessarily, or I am, and I choose to do them anyway. That's a very extreme place. And so you would say perhaps a lack of awareness until too late, right? So some of this is about being aware immediately about I'm feeling this and what can I do about it. Is there a way to stay on top of that and then start to think about, okay, how can I shift away from some of this negative? It doesn't mean don't feel it. It means feel it. Be aware of it. Understand why you're feeling it that way. And are there ways for me to shift perspective and show up a little bit differently? I think that's really, we're nudging it in a direction, nudge in a direction of how can I feel differently about what's happening? And so these are some of the questions you can ask or just reflect on. What are you inspired by? What are you excited about? What do you take pride in? Right? It's often negative emotions can take up your entire cognitive and emotional space, right? It fills the room. Similarly, I say this because I'm going to be talking to you about change leadership later in the week. And when you hear about things that are changing, it can take up our entire emotional space or reaction to that. And a little perspective on that can be helpful, and that's what this is for, really. Can you get some perspective? Can we take it from filling the entire room to get a little bit more reality around that? And so it's this small thing here that is causing it. It is not my entire reality that is causing it. Does that make sense? So it's get some perspective on the size of the issue. And that these things can help me, the rest of my life is still around. I still find excitement in these things. I still find beauty in these things. These things still happen. And it's not my entire reality now. The boss doesn't have to, it's a bad day. We didn't get to you.
Just wondering, how do you gauge the emotions of the group as a leader quickly when you have a big group, like 40 people, 30 people, quickly get the emotions and engage? Use it to make decisions.
Oof.
Use pros.
One word, and use one word. You're tough. Jeez. Yeah. You should see the face he just made at me. You do wear it on here. That's good. I can read that. So first, there are people who will wear it, right? You can see it in some of their face. You can also ask, like I ask all of you, how are you feeling? And we'll continue to do that. And then you can make that, I want to say, normalize the way that you do that. Make it safe for people to share that. You do that, of course, by leading, right? You share that. I'm feeling really positive today. You can just, right? And then make it okay for people to share that. That'll help you gauge, right? And of course, people are going to be, what is this happening here? Skeptical at first, absolutely yes. Just keep at it. Just like with most things with leadership. Just keep at it, because you're building a space. Evan said psychological safety earlier. That's what people need in order to be able to express that emotional place. And if you want to know what they are, you have to create a place where it's okay for people to share that. They're going to feel it anyway, and it's going to drive some of the things that they do and say. Now, will they squash some of it? Probably, until you make it okay, right? And you can make it okay. This is the part that everybody hang on. You can make it okay by saying, you could even say, I was a little frustrated today, and I got through it, and now I'm feeling better. Don't start with that, right? Don't open your, I'm going to make it okay to express feelings by sharing I was, super angry, and start with maybe something positive. But eventually, you can get to a place where that's okay, right? People will appreciate you sharing that. Right, as long as you're regulating on the back end after that. Say, I've come to a place where, okay, let's talk about how to fix this thing or make this better as a group, like that sort of including folks. Did I answer your question? So make it okay. The short answer is make it okay. The long answer is it's hard to make it okay, and it's going to take a while to get there, but most of the things that we talk about this week is about culture and what is the, you call it microculture, small culture on your team. Because as the leader, you decide how to influence what the culture on your team is. Whether you're actively deciding or not, you decide, right? By your actions, by your behavior, right? I don't know that this leader, who are we having a good day or a bad day, I don't know that leader is actively determining the culture on the team, but there is a culture on that team that is influenced by the way the leader shows up. And so you can be intentional about that, and here's, I want to show up, and this is the culture I want, or not, or just let it happen, because if there will be a culture, and you can influence it, or it can just create itself. And watch out if it creates itself, because who knows what you might get.
There are two ways of asking. You can ask, how are you feeling, or you can ask if everything is okay. Because one shows that you're ready to listen, and the other one is not, right?
Oh, perfect. Yeah, I was hoping, I was a little worried about where you were going. Like, no, just ask if everything is okay. Like, well, everyone says yes to everything is okay, unless it's really, really, really not okay. I love that. Yeah, because the difference between a No, I'm amazing. Yeah, right. I love this though, that you're demonstrating the difference between open-ended question and closed-ended question. So does that make you guys know that? Closed-ended question means the only answer possible is like binary, like yes, no. Is everyone okay? Yes or no. And really what I'm asking you is just to say yes to me so that I can then check the box and move on, right? Just like at the end of a lecture, if I ask you, any questions? What does that mean? I'm done, no questions, right? Instead, it's an open-ended question. Right? I expect an actual, how are you feeling today? You can ask that, ask your team. I'm feeling excited. How are you feeling today? Right? And that, just by saying you're excited, might influence other people to say the same thing. That's all right. I mean, you don't have to be excited just because I am. If you are, great. Really good. And so there's a couple, oh, go ahead.
You're going to sound like a weirdo asking your teammates, how are you feeling today? What the hell is going on with this guy? What can you stimulate?
I detect you're not buying the idea of asking people how they're feeling. I'm going to do it to you all week, though, so strap in.
Yeah, but it's going to sound weird at the beginning, like for 2 or 3 weeks, and then people get used to it. And perhaps with time, we will eventually open to discussion about their emotions.
Yeah. And so some of the places we're going, this is about building trust on teams, right? If you want teams to function at high levels, they need to build trust with each other. And some of the ways you do that is by having conversations like that. You need to learn about the team and how the team likes to show up, and by asking a question like that, you can get there.
Can I ask you one thing?
Please.
Because sometimes within the team, there is like talking behind your back. You know, people are coming and saying different things about others. Usually, like showing the kind of behavior they not accept, and but talking behind the backs. How do you tackle that within the team? Being emotionally intelligent.
That is a long answer. How do you tackle people? It's always going to it's going to happen, right? Like, you all have bosses.
But some bosses, they are actively promoting this. I mean, come over and spy around, tell me what people think.
Oh.
And while the others are sort of, no, this is unfair. I mean, we should have open dialogue about it.
Yeah. So the longer way to get there, and probably the most effective way to get there, is to build the culture where that stops being necessary. I mean, what are the reasons why people are talking about the boss behind their back? Because they're in a bad mood, because they're too autocratic, because they're whatever, right? They don't listen. If you only listen, right? Let's minimize the reason why anyone would need to have that conversation. Is it always going to happen? Probably. Are you going to make some decisions that people don't like? Yes. Are people going to talk about that decision? Yes. I mean, it has to be okay for that to happen. Sure. It's when it becomes destructive and negative and undermining that's a problem. That would be, okay, so what am I doing that's encouraging all of that to happen? What can I do to, it's a longer conversation, and by the end of this week, maybe you and I should have that conversation if that's happening. Because there are ways through that. The last couple of things. So the open-ended question is about expressing curiosity, right? And so there's a couple of ideas that we're going to be presenting out here around like strong leader behavior. And the first is courage, and the second is curiosity. Right? It takes courage to be a leader, it just does. And it takes courage to have the conversations that are needed as a leader. And some of the conversations we're going to be talking about this week, feedback and coaching, and we call them courageous conversations, which are the difficult conversations. Somebody's expressing a behavior, somebody's talking behind their back, challenging conversations. It takes courage to have those conversations, and that's what we're going to say is, as a leader, you need to have courage. You need to, sometimes we call it lean in to those conversations, lean in, lean towards, run at those conversations, because those are the ones that are most effective. And then curiosity will get you through those conversations. Curiosity meaning open-ended questions, actual being curious about, well, this is interesting, why is this happening? Let me have a conversation with someone and understand what's happening. And I do that by asking just, so what happened there? What is going on? How are you feeling? And you don't have to run back and start asking people how they're feeling, because probably you're going to like, what did they teach you over there in Salzburg? What is this, how are you feeling stuff? And you could try. What I hope for is you are able to notice an emotional state, try and name what that emotion is, and navigate through that.
You can end every difficult conversation by asking how are you feeling.
Maybe not do that. I mean, at that point, sometimes it's not going to be a great answer. Yeah. So if you want to talk about how people are feeling on your team, great. What we're trying to get to is just awareness and acceptance that you will have an emotional response, that you're able to name and understand what that means for how you show up, and that you can start to think about how you are showing up when you respond in that way. Can I shift away from reacting? Can I be aware of how I'm presenting, knowing that people are reading that? And that's my time. I have 1 minute, although I am between you and lunch, so I am happy to give you that minute to run down to lunch. There's my resources. Good. Okay, thanks everybody.